time for the Cupdate on Action Sports Jax 24/7.
3 abreast photo finish. Unbelievable 3-wide finish. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, we really haven't. And it's been a long time since NASCAR has gotten as much buzz as they have following this race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The literal photo finish. I mean, you're looking at it right there as they come to the stripe at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And what an ending it was to the second race of the NASCAR 2024 Cup season. Welcome to another edition of the Cupdate. I am Stuart Weber, here to talk about all things NASCAR from this past week and looking ahead, of course, to the week to come. And we do start with that photo finish and the victory by Daniel Suarez as he wins it quite literally by inches. 0.003 seconds. That is 3/1000th of a second between first and second. How about this? Third place, 7/1000th of a second behind the winner. It is the third closest finish in NASCAR history, and what a win for Daniel Suarez. He picks up his second career Cup Series victory. Of course, this is a guy who has won a championship in NASCAR at the lower divisions, but there's the shot that shows it all. Suarez, the closest car to you, just barely beating out Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch on that last lap. It was pretty impressive. They didn't wreck. There wasn't this huge pile up behind them. It was just a tremendous finish where the entire pack all crossed the start-finish line at the same time. Daniel Suarez, your winner by inches.
I knew I was a little bit ahead of the 8, but I had no idea about the 12. The 12 was already inside of him. So as soon as I saw the tower, I saw 99 first, so I thought we won, but it was so close, so who knows. But yeah, it was amazing. I can't wait to see the last lap back.
I don't know if you could want anything more out of a NASCAR race than we saw tonight. I mean, it was I was a complete race fan tonight. And I was just hanging on to every lap, and then you have the 3-wide finish, and I mean, just from an entertainment value, it was an incredible race. And then for Trackhouse and Daniel and Freeway to be the ones that came out on top, it's a little bit hard to find the words.
This racetrack just creates such a good racing, you know. It's a product of kind of like super speedway / mile and a half. It was an amazing race, and I enjoy it, and I hope that the fans enjoy it as well.
I think the overall thought from anybody who watched the race or has seen the highlights of the race is yes, they absolutely enjoyed it. We bring you out to the Cupdate wall and take a look at your top 5 from the race. Daniel Suarez just beating out Blaney and Busch, as mentioned. Austin Cindric, he was able to get a stage point from picking up one of the stage wins, so that's good for down the line. Austin, a guy who missed out on the playoffs a year ago. And then Bubba Wallace, he finished 5th in the Daytona 500. He finishes 5th once again here in Atlanta. Let's take a look at some of the notable results, some of the other drivers. Michael McDowell, he was your pole sitter, started in the top spot, but ends up in 8th. How about Chase Elliott? Chase finishes in 15th. William Byron coming off that Daytona 500 victory. He finishes 17th. And then how about some big names that we've kind of expected to maybe bounce back from Daytona? Well, here we are. Joey Logano ends up 28th. Kyle Larson 32nd. He said he really enjoyed the racing, but if he could avoid some of those super speedways for a little while, he would not be upset about it as he comes in 32nd. That's the interesting thing about starting this season with 2 super speedway races in a row. Let's go ahead and talk about the Atlanta race and really just how big of a win this is for a guy like Daniel Suarez, who rumors were swirling that he might be the odd man out looking forward at Trackhouse Racing. Obviously, Ross Chastain has had a tremendous start to his tenure with Trackhouse. Daniel Suarez, he won on that road course, but he's been waiting to break that taco piñata for a few years now. He finally got the chance to do it after the win in Atlanta. You talk about how big one win can be for a driver. Well, that was certainly the case for a guy like Daniel Suarez. More for the racing in this race. I thought it was interesting the way that the different stages provided different styles of racing. You look at the beginning, you get a wreck on lap number 2, very similar to kind of how it was at Daytona as the drivers were kind of finding their footing and figuring things out. You go to stage number 2 and it's all the way through green, almost 100 laps of green until Joey Logano put it in the fence late in that second stage, and you get the terrific finish. A little bit of a question mark with when guys were pitting, how that was all going to shake out. You get the wreck with Byron and McDowell down by pit road that could have really thrown everything off. Luckily, it did not. But you talk about a great race and guys like Blaney and Kyle Busch who are just kind of left wondering, well, what do we do now after we lose by oh so close?
Hopefully the fans enjoyed it. That was a hell of a damn race.
You touched on it a little bit. This is the opening race.
I haven't seen it. Holy man, they're so close. That's close.
There were some ill-handling cars out there, and guys were starting to fade and move around and have to get out of the gas, and the good cars could start ratcheting their way to the front. And we were one of those good cars. We were able to make our way into the top 5 before pit stop started. So, I just wish the tires would get to that point sooner so we could make some of that stuff happen earlier.
Kyle Busch, always happy to talk about the race. He did, by the way, win the truck race on Saturday, so at least one victory on the weekend for Kyle Busch as he went down to the lower series and stole a victory from them. And let's go ahead and welcome Daniel Suarez, shall we, to victory lane as he joins William Byron as the two drivers locked in green for the rest of the season, assuming we don't get 17 unique winners by the end of the regular season. And as I mentioned, this is just such a huge victory for a guy like Daniel Suarez who needed that win. He's a free agent after the year. Are they going to lock him up to a longer-term deal? Justin Marks certainly made it sound like that was going to be the case. We shall see as this year progresses. He moves up to 7th in the standings. You take a look, and as this season kind of goes along, this is going to make a little more sense. We've had 2 back-to-back super speedway races to start the season, so we are missing a bunch of the names that you would expect to be here, and then some names, apologies to Ty Gibbs there, John Hunter Nemechek, Corey LaJoie. Good questions on whether they are going to be big players in the long run for these standings, but Bubba Wallace back-to-back top 5s. Kyle Busch to the top now. Blaney had a bad start at Daytona. He's able to right that ship right there. All right, let's talk about some of the big talkers when it comes to this first race of the year. And we're going to start with Joey Logano and Glovegate. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Joey Logano penalized before the start of this race in Atlanta. Now, that penalty ended up being a moot point because of the lap 2 wreck that brought out the caution, but Joey Logano had to both start at the rear and serve a pass-through penalty because they altered the glove. If you look real carefully, you could see the webbing between the thumb and the finger. Now, at these super speedway tracks, we've learned over the last couple years that if you kind of hold your hand up by the window netting, you can actually deflect a little more air and gain the tiniest fraction of speed because it's keeping that air out of the car and making you more aerodynamic. Well, the engineers over there for Logano's team thought, let's try something out. NASCAR not a big fan of that, and as such, he gets that big penalty, which ended up not putting him a couple laps down like it probably would have had we not had that early caution. Instead, a $10,000 fine for Joey Logano after that one, and you can bet that the glove will be back to normal next week. Another big talker for me has to be Front Row Motorsports, and you talk about just this big push that they have had at the start of the season. Obviously, Michael McDowell started on the front row at the Daytona 500. He started second. Well, how about this? He gets his first pole after 467 career starts in NASCAR. First pole comes here this weekend at Atlanta. That is a huge accomplishment, not only for McDowell, but definitely for Front Row Motorsports, who this offseason improved their connection with the Ford Performance team. Now they have an affiliation with Penske, who obviously has won the last 2 championships, Team Penske has. So that information, that data can only help a team like Front Row Motorsports, who has shown that they are very interested in improving their program and trying to get better. Certainly something interesting so far. Okay, how about our most impressive performance of the race? I'm staying with Front Row Motorsports. And look, I know Todd Gilliland didn't end up with a great finish in this race, but how about leading a race-high 58 laps? Consider this, coming into this race, 27 career laps led, and then he led 58 in this one race in Atlanta. I think it's because he had Georgia peanuts on the car and the race was in Georgia. Maybe I'm nuts. I don't know. Just a thought. But I got to go with Todd Gilliland as my most impressive driver of the race because of, well, what an outstanding performance he had. Again, the results didn't show it, but great showing there by Todd Gilliland. All right, time for a quick break here on the Cupdate. When we come back, we're going to discuss the rise of Josh Berry from short track racing to a shot at Xfinity, and now in the Cup Series. That conversation with the driver of the number 4 is coming up next. When you think sports, you think Action Sports Jax, the official station of the Jaguars, on location for every game. But the most experienced team in town doesn't stop there. From high school football to the big events in the area, Action Sports Jax is always on. Now, we take that to a new level. Action Sports Jax 24/7 is around-the-clock coverage of the teams you love and the moments you can't miss. The best local sports in Jacksonville on Action Sports Jax 24/7.
You're watching the Cupdate on Action Sports Jax 24/7.
We know there's pressure on us to perform, right? Everybody keeps asking, is there pressure on you? Yes, there's pressure on all of us, right? We have to perform at our jobs. We have to run well. We have to run up front, win races. That's how we keep our jobs. Unless our dad's paying for us to race, like some people, then you have to perform.
I love it. I love Josh Berry with the bold words there. And look, that is a true thing in NASCAR right now, where you have some of these drivers who are only there because they have the sponsorship money, whether it's from their connections to companies to their family connections. That is certainly a part of the sport. Josh Berry representing one of those guys who has made it based on his talent and his skill behind the wheel. So certainly some interesting words there from Josh Berry. He is a rookie, quote unquote. He's a very old rookie, but what a story he has been with his ascension here in NASCAR. And it's really been a cool one to watch unfold over the last 4 or 5 years. If you knew about the name about Josh Berry and how he led Dale Jr.'s late model program, mentoring young drivers, getting out there on the weekends at these short tracks all across the Southeast and winning race after race after race. Well, eventually that has led to now and the great opportunity that Berry has. Let's check out a little bit of the career bio for Josh Berry. I mentioned his Cars Tour roots. Of course, won a national championship in the late model ranks and is the all-time leader in victories in Cars Tour. That is the series now owned by Dale Jr. More on that in a second. How about it? Junior Motorsports giving him the shot in Xfinity in 2021. He wins in 2 different cars, including that one at Las Vegas. Oh, a little precursor perhaps to this week. All of that performance leads him to a full-time ride in the Cup Series, driving the number 4 for Stewart-Haas Racing. I had a chance to catch up with the driver of the number 4 car and talk about his road to the Cup Series.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think back on kind of the chain of events there. But, on the 4 car and Stewart-Haas Racing, right, their legacy speaks for themselves. And they have the opportunity to work with a team as strong as the 4 team and work with a crew chief like Rodney Childers is really just a no-brainer for me, I think, from really every angle.
I think, Josh, you're in a unique position to where you can really speak to the high quality of racers at lower levels across the United States and how hard it is to sometimes find that talent and get them to all the way up to the Cup Series. I mean, we see it time after time where, maybe the guy who's got the sponsorship's going to get that bump more so than the guy who might be the best wheelman on a Friday or Saturday night at a local track. Can you speak to that a little bit and just how much talent there really is, say, on the Cars Tour level right now?
Yeah, I think that that's real, right? I mean, there's a lot of talent at a lot of these, I kind of use grassroots racing for, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's not necessarily just asphalt late models, but asphalt modifieds and dirt. Obviously, there's a ton of talented drivers on the dirt side of things and road course racing side of things. So, it's a tough balance, right? I think that there's a ton of, what I've enjoyed most about my career, I guess, to speak on would be, I spent so much time at that grassroots level with the weekly series and also the Cars Tour. And what you get in that one, which is really similar, I think, to a lot of other forms of racing, is that you end up racing a lot of these local heroes, I guess, that have been racing at Hickory Motor Speedway for a long time, or Orange County Speedway, and that's how you learn to race. You learn to race against kind of these career short track racers that have been doing this for a long time. And I think for a lot of the younger generation, I feel like they don't spend enough time in that, right, in that level. Because you see it time and time again that people come in to like a Cars Tour run a handful of races, have some mediocre success, and then go on to a ARCA car or something right away. And I think spending time in that grassroots definitely can prove some benefit long term.
And I think the importance of that time in your career speaks to the fact that, you got the trophy behind you, right? You got your national championship trophy back there. I know that's probably one of your greatest racing memories. How important are the people like Dale Jr. who are not only investing now in the Cars Tour, but giving guys like you a chance and giving you that opportunity to try out the Xfinity Series? And then you obviously showed how good you were in winning those races in that part-time season, but to have those stewards of the sport, I know Kevin Harvick out there, as well as Justin Marks, guys like that, who are as interested as the drivers are in getting that talent to the places they need to get to.
Yeah, I think, from a series side of things, right, to have that involvement at that level, to bring those extra eyes on that series itself is a huge benefit for all the racers involved, all the teams, all the drivers, right? Like there's going to be, to be able to legitimize it from the outside looking in, to have more media paying attention to it, to have more fans paying attention to it is a great thing for long term, right? Like I think to just do whatever they can to legitimize and put that racing out there in front of people is a huge part of it. I think just because the big thing what you need to do for those levels and for those racers is just get their name out there, right? Like, because really what it boils down to, it's like you said earlier. I mean, unless you have the funding yourself, you found the funding, right? Like it just takes a break, right? That's what we always talk about. It takes an opportunity. It takes a break, something to go your way, right? And for me, that was Dale, right? That was Dale, Kelly, LW, everybody at Junior Motorsports that they gave me an opportunity, but then continued to believe in me and kind of molded me into the racer that I was at that level, right? And then ultimately, I got another break by going back and going into the Xfinity Series, right? So just getting in a stock car was one break. But for a lot of these guys, it's going to be different. Maybe that's, getting some manufacturer support or a sponsor, right? Somebody that watches them race and thinks, man, I want to help this guy, right? Like anything we can do to get eyes on that level of racing will help everybody in the long term.
All right, coming up next on the Cup Day, we're going to go from 4 wheels to 2 wheels. It's what we like to call a different drive. That segment is coming up next right here on the Action Sports Jacks Cup Day. Stay with us. When you think sports, you think Action Sports Jacks, the official station of the Jaguars, on location for every game. But the most experienced team in town doesn't stop there. From high school football to the big events in the area, Action Sports Jacks is always on. Now, we take that to a new level. Action Sports Jacks 24/7 is around-the-clock coverage of the teams you love and the moments you can't miss. The best local sports in Jacksonville on Action Sports Jacks 24/7.
You're watching the Cup Date on Action Sports Jacks 24/7.
Oh, next up on the schedule, it's Vegas, baby. Las Vegas Motor Speedway will be the host of this week's NASCAR events. Another full weekend. All 3 series will be in action, starting with a little Friday night action under the lights for the Craftsman Truck Series. I don't know. I love watching the truck races at night. It just seems to add a little extra edge to it. And those guys are always wrecking all over the place. A lot of fun. Saturday at 5 o'clock, you've got the Xfinity race. And then Sunday, 3:30 p.m., you can watch the Cup Series with the Pennzoil 400. And you can watch that race on Fox 30. Pretty exciting stuff for NASCAR. The question is, are they going to be able to build off of all of that momentum from the biggest race of the year in the Daytona 500? Then you follow it up with perhaps one of the best finishes that we have ever seen in NASCAR, with the way that ended at Atlanta. I know there's a lot of talk about some of the other races. Darlington from back in the day. Daytona always has some great finishes. The fight in 1979 is always going to go down as the best finish of all time for me. But as far as a close finish goes, this was pretty cool. Kind of harkens back to the first ever Daytona 500 on the track. They also had a 3-wide finish. Lee Petty, of course, winning that one way back when. All right, time now for the part of our show we like to call a different drive. And I mentioned we're going from 4 wheels to 2 wheels. And I'm going to start with the Grand National Cross Country Series. It is headed to Palatka, so right here in Northeast Florida this upcoming weekend with a little event they like to call the Wild Boar. And look, you're looking at the track right here from a POV, and you can absolutely see this is not some finely manicured, groomed course that they're racing on. They're going to have to go out there, swerve between the trees, look out for other riders, and get challenged by the elements. It's a 10 to 12 mile course, and it's not just going to be bikes. As you see a pass about to happen, I just love this video of the pass. There's such tight quarters, and you're making passes like that. Bikes and ATVs, big event going on out at Palatka. Going to be a whole lot of fun for the people who want to go check it out. Go look up the Wild Boar. Going to be an awesome event. ATVs on Saturday, and then the pro bikes are going to be on Sunday. So that's just part of a different drive this week. The other part is at the exact same time at the World Center of Racing. It's the Daytona Supercross. It is the best of the best riders in the world when it comes to motorbike riding, Supercross, motocross. Sometimes you wonder what the difference is between those two. Well, motocross is more of a course like you just saw out in the country. Supercross is when they put it in a stadium, whether that be a football stadium, an arena, or in this case, the front stretch of Daytona. Always really cool to see them lay out the dirt. I know Ricky Carmichael always involved with the design of the course for that one. You got the two classes, the 250 cc's, the 450 cc's. Certainly an exciting show will be put on at Daytona as part of Bike Week. We've got them on the dirt this week. And then, of course, that means right around the corner is the street bikes coming up at Daytona, which will be pretty exciting as well. If you haven't been to the Daytona Supercross, that's another fun one to go and check out if you get the chance. So that is a different drive for this week. Let's talk a little bit more about NASCAR and the Cup Series, just the excitement. For me, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to see how this season has started, and for me, it's cool to see a lot of the casuals getting involved and chiming in on social media and talking about just their thoughts about what they thought about that race in Atlanta and that finish. Not to throw our guy's name out there, but Dan Hicken tweeting about NASCAR. We never see Dan Hicken tweet about NASCAR, and even he was watching the finish. Brent Martineau was watching the finish. Everyone in the Action Sports Jacks office was watching the finish, and not just because it was their job, because it was such an awesome ending to that race. And that's awesome for the sport that they have this platform, this chance to showcase what was some really good racing. Now, you got to keep it going. The news cycle's constantly turning. You got to keep it going this week at Las Vegas. Maybe Blaney can get the win this week. We'll certainly see. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Action Sports Jacks Cupdate. We leave you with some more of the beautiful images from there at Atlanta. Daniel Suarez picking up the victory, his second career win in the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll be back to break down the Las Vegas race next week.
Thanks for watching the Cupdate on Action Sports Jacks 24/7.